From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Cairns. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of amazing ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. In today's podcast, we have our Copywriting with Todd Jones session, and Todd joins me, and we're going to talk about his copywriting origin story. Grab a drink, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. This podcast is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency that can help protect your WordPress website today. Go to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and see what we can do to help you protect your business investment. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here, and today I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Todd Jones, and we're going to talk about copywriting with Todd Jones, and today's topic is his origin story, how he got into copywriting. How are you, Todd?
I'm doing pretty good. Not bad for a Wednesday.
Yeah. We need no more tornadoes and no more rain, and you Americans can
You
keep
can blame
all your stuff.
Battle and Barrel.
Yeah. Get rid of it. We had torrential rain overnight, so we're done. So that's the way it goes. How did you get into copywriting?
In the beginning, I was gonna start with Genesis 1:1, right? In the beginning, that is a question I've pondered the last few days. And you said we're gonna do this, right? We're gonna do this origin story about my copywriting. So let's do this under the guise of the fact that I talked about copywriting as anything basically leads people toward the sale. So, it's a broader umbrella than a lot of people want to do. So when did I start writing something that leads people toward a sale? And for me, that's hard to do without going back to early mid 20s.
Okay.
I did, like a lot of people, did college. My bachelor's degree is in religion. I went to a small Baptist college in Northeast Arkansas. And the thing I say, there's a lot of things I learned there, but one of the things about my major professors is they taught me how to research. And they did that by assigning papers, right? So before Google, before Perplexity, before Gemini, before ChatGPT, we had to go to the library, the thing with all the books, and do the research and the card catalog and all that jazz. Anyway, I learned how to write. And then when I did graduate school, which I didn't finish, I actually excelled at that part of it. I liked it. So I'm trying to make a transition because I had a lot of, health issues, and I'm trying to make a transition into the web world. And one of the things I noticed is that companies generally, especially smaller companies that we work with, especially early in our career, don't have somebody to write the content for them, or it's not very well done, whatever. It's assumed that the content comes to the website. It's not, all this kind of stuff. And as I started blogging about football, college football in particular. And one thing you need to do when you do that is have something to talk about, like your podcast. You got to have something to talk about. So I started doing book reviews because I knew how to do book reviews because I did them in school. So at the time, Borders, Books, and Music. Yeah. Okay, here we go again. So I worked in a bookstore at the time that I started this college football blog. And the one thing I knew how to do was book reviews, right? And I was like, well, it's my platform. I built it. Originally I built on Blogspot. Eventually I moved to WordPress. but I could write about what I want. So I worked at a bookstore and we got discounts and the ability to check books out. And at the time, there were a lot of college football books coming out. It was hot. The Blind Side, everybody remembers the movie, The Blind Side. I read it as a book before I ever saw the movie.
Yeah.
There were some other ones like that came out. And even had a couple people to send me a book to review. Gary Andrew Poole's book about Red Grange. He sent that to me in the mail. I got a pre-copy of a book that they thought when Mark Richt was at Georgia, they thought he was going to win a national championship. So this guy wrote a book about it before the season came in. He didn't win the championship, but anyway, I got a book. It was more or less a spiral bound notebook. Is what it was. I mean, it was before it was published, and so I would do these reviews on my website, and as well as do my ranking, and then the local online only site in Dallas, I was doing they were pulling some of my articles in to I was called a content partner. But then they said, hey, would you like to do some exclusive writing for something? Sure. And that meant, I got press credentials to a couple of games and Texas Motor Speedway and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. Now I should say this to say my writing, certainly I did it in school, but I went through a really deep, dark depression, and it was one of my therapies was to journal. I was journaling at the time. Now,
Do you still journal,
I
Todd?
think I was using no, I haven't done it in years. I should, but I don't. But anyway, WordPerfect, do you remember that software? I pretty
All too
much
well.
journaled in WordPerfect.
When I
Yeah.
started
And so
in healthcare at Women's College Hospital, we were a WordPerfect DOS shop in those days, and till
yeah,
Word came around, WordPerfect
yeah,
Canadian, by the way, they were owned
yeah.
by
I didn't
Corel's,
switch to Word for a long time. Yeah, Corel. Yeah. I
Corel, and
used a lot of Corel products in my early day.
yeah, and they were actually owned by Novell at one point. WordPerfect was owned by Novell too.
Uh-huh.
They've been kind of
Yep.
shopped around, and it's still around, I think,
Yep.
but not much use for it these
I
days.
think so. Yeah.
And what I'll tell you is,
No. Anyway,
yeah, keep going.
it kind of led me into, I won't say journalism. I mean, I was going down the whole building WordPress website thing. So
Yep.
I kind of had these multiple skills coming into the decade. Had to move to Arkansas and trying to reestablish, and I was working for agency, and they started using me to do I did a little bit of everything at the agency. It started off with me building. I would take the design from the designers in the office and build the website to spec as close as I could. I wasn't very good at it, but I did do it. I did a few of them. I had a lot of help. One of the guys who was probably 20 years younger was helping me out a lot. He was really talented front end designer, developer. And I learned some stuff, but I also learned I wasn't very good at it. I wasn't terrible at it, but I was pretty good at it. I'm pretty good at customizing themes. Building something straight from a Photoshop file, maybe at my best use. But in the process, they started having me to do some writing and blog, the blog thing. And I did that for some other people. And I started writing for the statewide business, politics and business news organization. So I realized that I had this writing skill. And I was on a podcast the other day and I said, I remember discovering copy bloggers, probably along, and pro bloggers. I know you were on pro bloggers a lot back in the day, Darren Rouse and
Rouse.
Brian Clark. So those are two powerhouse blogs at the time. And I probably consumed at the time everything I could with copy bloggers, and
Yep.
maybe started learning a little bit about copywriting. I didn't really know what copywriting was. I just knew about content writing, content marketing, which is kind of what I went along doing along with my website building. Because kind of like your origin story, you said you learned that building a website wasn't enough. You had to find a way to get people traffic, right?
Yep.
Well, for me, that was content writing. And so I went down that road, and then I discovered the world of copywriting and started learning from, the Joanna Weebs and the Ben Settles and some of those kind of people along the way. And so that's kind of a long story short, really. I mean, not real short, but for me, I feel like it goes back to um, school, learning to write for school, learning how to write a book review, learning how to write a research paper, learning how to write something about a text in the Bible. I mean, I was, and you learned about research. And again, like I said, it wasn't like we were going to Google and Googling this stuff. We were pulling out books, and quoting stuff and quoting thoughts from a book, and you had to cite it, and you did it in WordPress, and it was a lot of fun. I went WordPerfect, and it was a lot of fun. And you use the Chicago manual style, and all that stuff was kind of a precursor to copywriting. And in reality, when you use any kind of writing in business, and I tend to forget about video and audio scripts, but those are a big copywriting tool that's still being used. I see job opportunities for people who can write YouTube scripts, and I'm like, that seems like an odd job, but I guess people can do it. But anyway, those are all something, your words for a business or an organization, because nonprofits need it too, that brings people closer to the sale. If you look at a funnel and you think, okay, you got a long funnel, anything, in my opinion, that's drawing in closer to the sale, even if it's at the top, what we call the top of the funnel. And that's why I don't have a problem including content writing in the term copywriting. I mean, it's not a difference between copywriting and content writing. It's just a difference of the type of copywriting. That's the way I view it. So I differ with some of my friends in the copywriting world in that regard.
So true. You mentioned Darren Rouse out of Australia, and we all know Pro Blogger back in the day. It was
Good
funny.
guy.
I was thinking, and how things have changed. It used to be you could write blog articles day after day after day, and you draw traction. And Darren actually put out an ebook, which I bought back in the day, called basically a mini course on how to write blogs for 30 days to increase your traffic. Well, that strategy doesn't work anymore, but in those days, it certainly did work.
I'm not completely sure that it doesn't work, but I think it's time consuming to do. And I mean, whenever all things equal, the site that's putting out something the most is usually the one that gets. But you're right, everything is upended. That's why I call it the algo gods, because the algorithms, and I'm not just talking about Google's just one of them. You have all the social medias are run on algorithms. They're all run on algorithms. And so the point of getting someone from wherever to your site, especially organically, is not as easy it was in 2020 or 2010. I mean, when Darren and Brian Clark were doing those things. And so, even now, I told you I was just on the weekly call with Ann Smarty from Smarty Marketing. And one of the reasons I do that is because there's so much change going on with SEO. I'm not an SEO expert by any stretch, but I love to get on her listen to her podcast or whatever she calls it, and listen, because she's in the weeds every day doing this stuff for clients, and she knows, she's testing stuff. And so I get a lot of information in the SEO world through the traction goes through her and Lily Ray. I mean, there's other people too. I actually forwarded you an email from Glenn Aesop before we got on the show. So yeah, I mean, it's SEO, what we call organic, whatever SEO is, really changed dramatically, and so is social media.
There is no question on that one.
I don't know what
it keeps changing, and then you've got I don't even want to get into it in this one. We've talked about, you and I, time and time again, is AI and the impacts of SEO and AI and that whole mess. And Yoast
Yeah, one of
is
the things the SEO experts talk about, because what you're seeing in search engines
yep.
is, we are, if you don't know this by now, we are moving toward search engine results being generated by AI, period. And
Mhm.
so, and there's this, and actually, if you're following SEO, you may know who Rand Fishkin is, one of the co-founders of Moz. He is now the founder of SparkToro,
Yep.
but he put out an article this week or last week about what they call zero click search results. And that is like how many people are not clicking on. So it depends on the query that you're asking, right? If I go in and say, how do I've done some of these recently. How do I do, this, and this? Depending on the query, they'll actually auto generate. You see it right in front of you, the results. And there's
Yep.
no article to click to, nothing. And sometimes I ignore it and go look for an article, but sometimes I go, okay, it'll be something to do with Facebook. But how do I do? Because Facebook changes every week, it feels like. I got to do something on Facebook. I hadn't done it in 2 years. What? Okay. And I put in,
Oh,
how do
yes.
I do this in Facebook? And then it'll auto generate for me. So the search results in Google, and I think you'll start, Copilot's becoming big with Microsoft. You're going to see your search engine results, at least the top half of that, be completely AI generated for the most part, at least the top part of it. And so now SEO experts like Ann are trying to figure out, how do we get my client his or her content in those results. It's a changing game, and so it's a frustrating deal. But everything has changed. But doesn't mean you still have to find a path to get people to your site. And I think a lot about this a lot too. And there's another area I can go to that I'm not going to touch on this particular call, but maybe we'll do it in the future. Um, Community building.
Oh,
That's
no
another.
question. Was another
Um,
topic down the road.
Yep. If your readers know who Mark Schaefer is, you put out a book last year about essentially community being
Yes.
the last frontier or something like that for marketing. And Mark has put out predictions before that came true. So I think it's worth listening to anything he says. And but anyway, that's you've got to find ways to get people to your site. And search, and really, you think about social media, especially, and search engines,
Yep.
their goal is not to send you somewhere else. Their goal is to keep you, because
Yep.
they don't make money by sending you somewhere else. So they're doing a better job now than they did 5 years ago of doing that, which means that we get fewer and fewer traffic.
No question. Do you ever
How did we
regret?
get from my origin story to that?
Yeah. Do you ever regret
Do I
getting
have a
into?
regret?
Do you ever regret getting into copywriting, or where do you kind of sit on that?
I think I don't, I'm starting to think about, am I really a copywriter? Well, yeah, I'm a copywriter. Um, I see it as a skill, a good skill.
Mhm.
Um, you talk about evolving. You were talking about how you were going to change what you call yourself,
I
your
am.
agency. What do you call it? A digital concierge.
Yep.
And I think it's brilliant.
Shout out to Mr.
Um,
Spencer Foreman for that idea. But thanks, Spence. I'll steal that.
yeah. So we all have to evolve. We all have to evolve. And a lot of stuff that people did as a copywriter is being um done using AI.
Yeah.
So there's less roles out there, and there's less need. And so guys like you and me and Ryan Waterbury, we have multiple skills. We're what CM Punk might call a 5-tool player.
Yeah. Just a
And
bit.
my friend Steve Roller talks about that as well, being a 5-tool player. You and I and Ryan and Devender and Paul Lacey and Spencer Foreman and so many people we have multiple skills. And so copywriting is probably one of my best skills, per se, because I'm not as good at the back end stuff as you and Ryan are. And I'm not near as good as the design as Paul and David, the vendor, are.
Yep.
But, I can do a lot of the same things. And so, I feel like I'm, in some sense, we're all a concierge. We're a digital concierge for clients.
Yeah.
What do we need? And I find myself more and more when I get in touch with someone, when I engage someone, it's like, okay, I'm putting on my consulting hat. What do they really need at this
Yep.
time?
Yep.
I mean, sure, I can go off and quote them a, $3,000 copywriting project, but that may not be their best need. I was talking to my friend Helen this morning, and she had somebody she was talking to me about, we were collaborating with. I said, look, what we can do depends on what their budget is. And I said, but what they really need are these two things. And so sometimes it's not what your main skill is. Sometimes they need a website audit on the inside, like what are the plugins they're using, what's the server. Sometimes that's the best thing they can have. So sometimes, and I found this as a copywriter, and even in my own career, what they don't need is a complete website rewrite. Sometimes they just need to rework a page. They need to add some social proof. It's all under copywriting. So sometimes you don't need to go in and rewrite the whole page. Sometimes they need to rearrange things. Sometimes they need to clarify some things.
So true.
Sometimes they need to add some persuasive elements,
So true. So true.
So
Todd, as always, thank you for sharing your story. I hope some people find it insightful. I think origin stories are really important, whether it's WordPress, copywriting, marketing, like you and I did recently, a founder story, which we shared about my business and how I founded mine. I think they're really insightful on what makes people tick. So as always, thanks for sharing, and we'll be back with you in a couple of weeks. You have a great day, my friend.
thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. This show is brought to you by StunningDigitalMarketing.com, your Toronto leader in digital marketing services. Not only do we protect your WordPress website, we can help you with your site, provide social media management for your business, or even do one-on-one consulting. To find out more, go to StunningDigitalMarketing.com. A very special thank you to Todd Jones for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. I love you, and I think about you every day. For more information about Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital marketing experts, go to StunningDigitalMarketing.com or go to StunningDigitalMarketing.info to find out all the great places that Rob Cairns can be found on the web.